Hello, I'm Sadia Stremska and you're watching Press Corner on this bright Sunday morning. In this program, we look at current events from various vantage points, letting our audience reach their own conclusions. Today, we're going to cover Georgia, the Middle East and the US. And I am joined by Bogusław Chrabota, Editor-in-Chief Rzeczpospolita. Aleksandra Karasińska, Director, Ringier, Axel Foundation.
Thank you, Sally.
Małgorzata Zawadka, US correspondent for Polish media. Good morning. As well as Jo Harper, freelance journalist.
Good morning.
So, our first topic is Georgia. Georgia has been called, the election that took place in Georgia has been called crucial for the country's future EU integration. Georgia's pro-Western opposition has refused to accept the results, which show a win for the ruling pro-Russian Georgian Dream party, claiming widespread fraud. Here's our report on the issue.
The Georgian Dream party, led by billionaire Bidzina Ivanishvili, claimed 54% of the vote, defying opposition exit polls that showed a majority for the pro-European opposition. Election observers documented instances of vote tampering, intimidation and attacks on opposition figures, including an incident in which an official was reportedly beaten by Georgian Dream supporters. Pro-European President Salome Zhurabishvili has called the election illegitimate, denouncing it as a Russian special operation. In response, tens of thousands of Georgians protested in Tbilisi, accusing the government of fraud and demanding a fresh vote. Despite Georgia's EU candidacy status, the EU Commission has warned that continued democratic backsliding could endanger accession talks. Analysts suggest that the outcome strengthens Moscow's influence over Georgia, marking a setback in the country's European ambitions.
So now, after this crucial vote, Georgia seems to be stuck in a limbo. So what does it mean for the country's EU integration aspirations?
I think that we cannot speak about integration anymore. Because, I mean, the last regulations, especially foreign agents regulation and anti-homosexual legislation, is absolutely against the mainstream of European Union. So, Georgia is formally the candidate since December 2023. But just speaking with politicians from the heart of Brussels, anyone says that there is no chance for integration for a country that, passes such regulations. So I don't think that without another revolution, because remember that history in Georgia goes through revolutions. Without another revolution, another just governing power in this country, it will be very difficult to join the EU.
But according to the Georgian Dream, they're not anti-EU.
That's true. That's true. I can continue because it happened in my life. I was in 2012 watching and covering elections in Georgia, and I had a chance to meet and speak with Ivanishvili. And of course, his roots are from Georgia. I mean, ethnic roots. But he made his money in Russia. In the 90s, in the banking system, in trade, etc. So my first question to him was about his Russian relations, and he said it's over. It's the past time. Now I'm a patriot. I just watch only the interest of Georgia, and every my step in the politics will be the direction to unification with West, with European Union, NATO, etc., etc. And as you saw the process in Georgia last 12 years, it was really, I mean, only one direction. The situation changed in 2022, in February, that Georgia opened borders for 1 million Russians who came down there. These were migrants, majority men who were avoiding military service, and now they are the part of Georgian problem. I mean, the basic problem of Georgia, because it's still 800,000 like this. Borders are open. These people are trading with Russia, etc. And they make a big pressure on the local politics. And watching the geopolitical map of this region, you see Georgia is a little city. I mean, the size of this country is like a city, in fact, next to great Russia. And these are the basic problems that they are probably changing direction.
But the real question is, and we still don't know the answer, what was the election rigged or no? And there are like various reports, and some of the actually believable reports says that no, actually more people voted for the Georgian Dream.
There were some violations.
There were some violations, but with the range of actually they would still win. Of course, probably not because of the disinformation, but the great part of the vote was also the fear. That because there was a choice between, you know, being relatively peaceful with Russia or going against Russia and risking invasion like as a Ukraine. So I think
realism.
the fear factor was a great one, probably bigger than in Moldova. That's my...
Yeah. I think that the ruling party convinced many citizens that voting for opposition means actually going to war with Russia, which was not the case, but that was the propaganda slogan. But what I agree with you that mentally, I think Russians never pulled out of Georgia, and they, as well as U.S., see Georgia as strategic, both military and economically, in sense of energy transition, etc., point. So I just wish that after what transpired during the election, we don't know was there a fraud or not, but obviously the elections were not free as we in the Western world perceive it or think about it. But obviously for me, there is a kind of thinking that we might have done better, we the West, in a sense of encouraging Georgian society to join NATO and European Union. We just gave them promise of democracy and prosperity, but actually not done enough to support this claim. And I think that Russians, on the contrary, did a lot to influence the society, the elites, the economy, and now we have a result.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said, but I think that the issue, the big issue is really what's happening in Russia, right? I mean, and what's happening in Ukraine on the ground, right? I mean, that will determine the extent to which, I mean, Georgia, the internal politics in Georgia is kind of playing both ends, I imagine, right? I mean, it's making gestures towards Moscow and it's making gestures towards Brussels, so... you know, Ishan, can I say his name correctly? Ivanishvili is playing a risky game, right? I mean, it depends on the next 18 months, 2 years, however long it takes in Ukraine to clear up. The Russians obviously have their, you know, their sphere of influence in which they are seeking to re-establish some kind of leverage, whether it's through kind of overt or covert means. So, you know, I mean, the prospect of European Union accession is still there, right? It's still on the table. And I think from what I understand, he's kind of playing his cards close to his chest because the invitation is still open. He's not overtly anti-EU, is he?
I mean, these regulations are absolutely
it's anti some of the values, perhaps.
Yes,
but that's a kind of
also against.
He's very pro-Orban, right? Viktor Orban. He just invited him.
Yes, but this regulation.
Yeah, true. But that is also a kind of tactical manoeuvre, right? I mean, they're playing kind of shadow games, aren't they? I mean, Orban is supporting him because it boosts Orban's domestic agenda. No, I mean, you know, the question is what happens in the Kremlin. Right. I mean, I think that's ultimately.
Well, the question is what happens in United.
Well, okay. I mean,
there's
all sorts of things, but you know, the relationship that Ishanishvili is developing with Moscow is probably quite insubstantial. I would have thought it's a gesture in the direction of Moscow, which is attracting, I presume, that proportion of the population of the electorate inside Georgia that is more sympathetic to a kind of Russian-oriented foreign policy in relation to...
1/6 of population of Georgia are Russians. Formally, they are migrants, but you know, I think that Russian razvedka, means secret services, are present in Georgia. And Georgia is especially important for Russia. Why? because they are losing Armenia now. This is Caucasus, yes? I mean, a hot point on the map. And there is Armenia engaged with, in a conflict with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan goes to Turkey, is related with Turkey, not with Russia anymore, okay? And you have Armenia just on the way of liberation from Soviet influence, Russian influence. And now you have a last country, Georgia, that's in a post-Russian sphere, a kind of a open country for them. No visa, free access, and trade. Because the Russians use Georgian banks for money transfer.
Yeah.
So, at the other hand, there is American base in Georgia, don't forget. And so they are in a very difficult place on the map. I think that Ivanishvili is realistic. He knows where he is. And of course, 50-60% of population of, especially Tbilisi as a European, really European city, these are people supporting integration with the EU. So it's a very difficult situation they are in. And one factor is who wins in the States, yes? Another factor, what will be when, in fact, there will be the end of the war, in hot war in Ukraine. And the next thing, what to do with this 500,000 Russians working there, transferring. Majority of these people are working online
With Russia.
With Russia, yes.
It is a very interesting situation indeed. Of course, we have also Moldova, right? And the second round of the presidential vote happening today. The narrative is quite similar, pro-Russia versus pro-EU. So definitely worth keeping an eye on these countries. But we have to change the topic and move on to the Middle East. Well, Israeli intelligence sources have indicated that Iran is preparing an attack on Israel using pro-Iranian militias in Iraq, with a possible launch within days. The move could allow Iran to retaliate against Israel while potentially avoiding direct Israeli strikes on Iranian soil. So here's our report.
Sources suggest the attack may involve drones and ballistic missiles stationed in Iraq. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has warned that Israel's previous strike on the nation will be met with a response. Iranian officials have also vowed that the anticipated retaliation will be both painful and certain, with the timing potentially before the US presidential election. This possible escalation follows a direct Israeli attack on Iranian military infrastructure last week, which caused limited damage but intensified regional tensions. The attack was a counter-response to an Iranian missile barrage on Israel 3 weeks ago, which Israeli air defences largely intercepted. Both countries have been locked in a series of retaliatory moves, with the conflict now involving threats of Iranian-backed operations beyond its borders. The US remains uncertain if Iran will proceed with the planned attack, though Israeli officials are preparing for the possibility of rapid escalation.
So we have these hostilities in the Middle East, tit for tat, between Israel and Iran. But I wonder, I wanted to go back and ask you about Netanyahu and his plan. Do you think that he has a plan, or does he make it up as he goes? Because first it was eradicate Hamas, then it was Hezbollah, and now it seems that it's Iran.
Well, he has a plan to be in power and to avoid prison because he has a lot of problems. So that's the definite plan. I think that he also has a plan to try to use the situation to the extreme, right? Because Israel really had a lot of victories right now. And they actually amazed us with their capability. So before the change in US government, if Kamala Harris will be the president, he has absolutely no idea what will happen. He's rooting for Donald Trump, who says he will always be a support of Israel. But in reality, we do not know what will happen, because the war in the Middle East is no good for America, because it brings them, like it uses its power when they should concentrate on China. And also it's not good for Europe because it just engages America in Middle East instead of looking for Ukraine and Russia. So it's really kind of right now. I think Netanyahu is doing whatever he can at this moment, that he does not have to he does not have to care so much for what Joe Biden says, because obviously he doesn't, and he does not have to stood up to Donald Trump, which will not be so easy. So that's I think where he's trying to do as much as possible, and I think he really did well. I mean, I'm speaking in such a straight terms, but from the looking at Netanyahu and Israel, they kind of, even though they brought this horrible, we don't like Israel as much as we used to, but from the military point of view, Israel really used the moment, I would say. Ola, you are an expert, so maybe I said something really wrong.
Whether Netanyahu has a plan. I think you have to say now he has a plan, but on 1 year ago, October 7 attack, Hamas attack, he hadn't. I mean, Israeli politics, as you probably all know, was very difficult. Elections all the time, parties changing, coalitions, and as you said, Netanyahu trying to cling to power, to stay in power, although he has those corruption scandals haunting him. But right now, it seems that the situation in the Middle East, in general, not only in Israel, is really very dangerous. I think it's the most difficult situation for decades right now, and there is a real danger of the conflict spilling out into the region, and that's what both United States, Europe, but also Muslim countries in the region are fearing, that the conflict with Iran is really something real. And we are right now waiting for the retaliation. Yesterday I've heard on CNN that there are news from the Israeli side that Iran can use Iraqi militias to attack the country even before the American election. So it also, we have to take under consideration that this moves still in the context of geopolitical situation, especially American election, that it plays the more unstable situation in the Middle East, the better for Trump, actually, and the better for Russia. So Kamala Harris really has a problem to tell her stance, to tell the Democratic Party, especially younger voters and the more progressive part of Democratic Party, why the American government administration is still supporting Israel. Not Israel, but actually Netanyahu so much. So I think that maybe the conflict will be a little bit less hot after the election.
Yes or not? Because, first of all, some guys from DC say that Trump is transactional. He has such a mentality. So, from one hand, he can, use shotgun, and the other hand, he can just deal with Tehran, for example. It's possible, such a scenario, I think, in the future. What about Netanyahu? No question about this guy. He builds himself as a war leader. And that's his way to the political domination in Israeli politics, yes. Like Zelensky in Ukraine, it's the same case. These guys are building themselves on a mentality of the war. And of course, he terrorizes region. And it's a great disacceptance in all Arab world against Netanyahu. I think he has no way to step back now. It's really risky for him. What about the attack of Tehran? Don't forget that there is no border between Israel and Iraq. So you have Syria, it's a huge territory just among these two countries. It's not easy to attack. They can use missiles. They can use missiles from Beirut, from Lebanon. I don't think that they will have a kind of corridor just through Syria to attack Israel. So probably it will be kind of a missile exchange from both sides. And the only important thing is the question if Israel will attack nuclear installations in Iran. And that's the unique moment for Netanyahu to destroy nuclear weapon program in Iran now. That's coming to the end. And after Tehran, they have nuclear weapons, it will be really stress for all the region.
But then one could argue that the Israeli response to the October 1st attack by Iran on Israel was quite conservative, right? Because they only tried to hit military targets, but partly in response to U.S. demands, because if they hit, let's say, all facilities, that would, of course, bring the prices of fuel up. So I wanted to ask you about Israel-U.S. relationship. Is Israel respectful or disrespectful of the Americans?
It's very disrespectful.
Israel has complete carte blanche, I think, doesn't it, in relation to the US? I mean, from what we can see, Kamala Harris is not. She's sitting on the fence, right? I mean, we don't know exactly. Trump is playing this game of trying to convince Muslim voters in some of these swing states that it's in their interest to, that he's pro-Muslim. And then the next day he says he's pro-Israel and he's the most pro-Israeli, president that's ever been. So going back to the Netanyahu thing, my suspicion is that he did have an idea of what he wanted to achieve. I don't think, obviously, the events of last October were, anticipated necessarily, but I think they were exploited within the context of that domestic politics in Israel to kind of conceal a lot of the malfeasance that was going on. There's a lot of political, games being played by Netanyahu. He's trying to consolidate that kind of Likud nationalistic coalition. And I think it's like our colleague here said, I think it's... if he goes backwards, if he's perceived to be kind of retreating in any way, then he's liable for criminal culpability down the line. If he loses power, he could quite easily go to prison, for various things. I doubt that he will. In relation to the US, both Trump and Harris are playing it quite open. I suspect there won't be any significant change in foreign policy in relation to Israel. The question, I guess, is what happens if Trump is elected in relation to Iran. His manoeuvrings in relation to Iran, the nuclear deal last time round. It will be interesting to see who will be influencing the Trump foreign policy agenda if Trump wins, and that's a big open question. I think Trump himself probably doesn't even know.
Well, we know who is influencing him: Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk for now, Tulsi Gabbard, and those who do not want to engage further in international politics, right?
Yeah, but there are good angels and bad angels on Trump's shoulders, right?
Yes.
I mean, and Tucker Carlson, I'm not sure if he's the
right advisor.
Well, no, I know he's not the right advisor.
Steve Bannon, who just left prison.
But Trump,
he will not be the Secretary of State, for sure.
No.
So
well,
we are speaking about professional
said,
politicians. Bannon is not professional politician, also Tucker. And I don't think that Musk has such an ambition to be just in politics. Yeah.
Who do you think will be the
I don't know.
secretary?
No one knows.
We don't know.
I don't know.
We don't know who is there because
that's
there is
true.
no one there anymore. Because all the people who were there and had some kind of responsibility, I feel, they just said they are in Harris camp.
No.
Now,
There are some Republicans who are serious and responsible. But I don't think the madness will be, direction of American politics all over the world. It's impossible. It's impossible. But what about? I was interviewing Mr. Charles Kupchan, one of a couple of days ago, just according to elections, and I asked him about Israel, of course, and he said every administration in states next 10, 12, 20, 50 years will support Israel. No, there's no difference between Trump or Kamala. Israel will have a protection umbrella from the states next years for sure.
One sentence to sum it up. All of you said I agree with it, but look, we are talking about the way how the American elections will influence Georgia or Middle East. But what I see is, if the Trump wins, the America will not, produce much more and lead with democracy, but will lead with chaos. And this is what the stakes are. So we don't know what happens with Iran, in Israel or Georgia in case the Trump comes back.
Mm-hmm. You think that it hasn't been leading with chaos so far? You think there's been
to the extent it's possible right now, no, not. There were some checks and balances in the system, but now they are not there.
Well, I guess we naturally drifted towards our third topic, and that is American elections, of course. So with only 48 hours remaining until the final stage of the U.S. presidential race, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are neck and neck. So each vote could prove decisive. The election is set to reshape politics far beyond the U.S. borders, as we've pointed out. So let's take a look at our report.
In Michigan, former First Lady Michelle Obama campaigned alongside Harris, urging voters to mobilize against a potential Trump victory. The former First Lady highlighted fears over women's healthcare access and what she described as Trump's erratic behavior.
So please, do not hand our fates over to the likes of Trump, who knows nothing about us, who has shown deep contempt for us. Because a vote for him is a vote against us.
Meanwhile, Trump has been busy energizing his supporters with populist rhetoric. After making promises to Michigan's automotive industry, the former president met with Arab American leaders who voiced support for his stance against ongoing Middle Eastern conflicts. While national polling averages show Harris slightly ahead, Trump has maintained a narrow lead in 5 out of 7 swing states. With voter concerns ranging from abortion rights and economic stability to foreign policy, this election is poised to have profound consequences both at home and abroad.
All right, so definitely a heated subject. So let me just sort of, put it out there. Who do you think is going to win?
I will bet that Kamala Harris is going to win, unless Donald Trump will, and we will not know for the next week, right? Yes. But lately, when I was leaving my house, with the last comment of Donald Trump with Tucker Carlson, during the Tucker Carlson interview, when he actually said something really violent, even though he did not really mean it, what they now say they mean it, the violence against women, Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney, that he said she should face the squadron of 9 carabines or, bullets, this was really appalling. And it shows how irresponsible Donald Trump is in leading the world. So I honestly think that if Kamala Harris wins, this will be one of the things that really happened at the last minute. Of course, I also say Kamala Harris because there is Anthony Lichtman, I believe. He's the guy who always predicts who will win. And he's the American prophet. He started with Ronald Reagan, and from now on he predicted Donald Trump's win. And I saw that he predicted that Kamala Harris will win. So I surrender to his wisdom, and I say Kamala Harris.
That sounds to me like the octopus who picks.
Exactly. So I predict Kamala Harris, although I really don't know. That's the truth.
Do you believe in the theory that Republican wives will actually vote for Kamala, and they're not openly saying that they will?
I don't know. It's so difficult to say. I mean, the pollsters in the United States are very careful given the previous mishaps and misinterpretations of the electorate results. It's very difficult, and we probably will not know, even day or 2 days after the election, it could be counted, there might be situations when in several counties in the swing states there will be recount or special commissions, etc., etc. So it could drag. We might not know. We should prepare actually to the situation when we might not know in a couple of days. But I can tell you what I will remember from this campaign very vividly. First of all, you probably were shocked as me seeing the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And for me, it was a sign how violent the campaign was, how deep is the polarization in sense of electorate, in sense of policy. And the second thing, and this is not even funny, the immigrants eating dogs and cats in Springfield, which was obviously said by Donald Trump during the debate, during one of the rallies. And this, in my opinion, shows that this is also epitome of how the campaign was uneven on the both sides. That Trump can say anything, whatever lies he think of, and Kamala Harris has to stick to facts, has to talk about economy, is asked about international policy, and she's really criticized about it. So this campaign was uneven, and it took place mostly on internet. And obviously, this way of communicating that Trump shown, he mastered it over years, is very dangerous and leads towards victory, I'm afraid.
But then Harris can always count on Joe Biden to say something inappropriate, right?
Well, it wasn't even just because Donald Trump had 2 years and Kamala Harris had 2 months or maybe 4. But this is the last week we see her emerging as a leader, that she's not afraid. She actually formulated her thoughts enough to be charismatic, and we really see it now. Will it be enough? We don't know. Just to want to say that if the thing that it's actually corresponding to Georgia and Moldavia, that I think if Donald Trump wins, it will be also because some of the people are afraid of violence erupting if he loses, because he will not admit that he lost. So
this is what I was going to ask you about.
American people might be also voting afraid of the terror, one thing. And the other is with the vote, the blinking eyes. I vote for, I am the Republican wife and I'm voting for Trump, but in reality I'm voting for Harris. I honestly think this one could backfire, because if they, the Democrats went the gender war, it could be the same with guys. They are voting, the Democratic wives will be informed that I am voting for Kamala Harris, honey, but in reality I will vote for the, machism and male power.
Very good point. But I wanted to ask you about the possible concession. I mean, will Republicans concede if they lose? Because it's not so clear, right?
Well, we don't know, do we? I mean, the indications are that if it's very, very close, there'll probably be, a series of contestations in various states and so on. Also depends on what happens, obviously, in the House of Representatives, right? The Senate, in particular. It's no, I mean, I think from what has been said so far, I think all of the things that we talk about, that we kind of, liberal, democratic supporting people believe to be the kind of standard discourse, doesn't exist for a lot of Americans, right? I mean, I think that's where Trump and Trumpism work, and that's the kind of the unknown, or one of the unknown variables. It's a fantasy world that Trump has created, and he occupies that space extremely well. He's very. No, I mean that's how I see it.
Reality world, right? Because
it's an alternative reality.
He's not politically correct.
Well, of course, yeah, but it's like you say. It's like some people may sort of subliminally, buy into that, that picture of a kind of a strong leader, a kind of a proto-fascist leader who's not a fascist, who toys with democracy, who plays some kind of game. The question is, again, I think what happens to those more trenchant Republicans, those on the kind of the very far right, the kind of the alt-right, who were responsible for the January the 6th uprising after the last election. The question is really, is it possible without, if Trump loses, technically, what happens to that group of people? Because they're the ones who are liable to cause kind of civil unrest and, you know, contest the election physically on the streets. And Trump, I think, exploits those people as well. Right? I mean, he's very transactional. He knows that he is the buckle that ties together this kind of quite diverse group on the right between kind of traditional Republicans and libertarians and kind of alt-right nationalists, which is not a very happy family. But they're held together by this kind of avuncular character. And Trump, I think, I mean, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I think Trump has played his role extremely well to that extent. He's given everybody the possibility to project onto him the thing which they think he will represent for them.
And what about evangelical Christians? Because I've came across a theory that they're the ones deciding who will be the US president.
Listen, I want to say something important, yeah? Because I don't know who will win, but my wife knows. And on the other hand, my wife doesn't interact with American debate. She said she has an intuition that Kamala will win. And she's sure about it, you know? So why? It's not a joke, because I think the key factor in the States is the mobilization of women, voting women. Yeah? So if they are enough well mobilized, I think she will be a next president of the US. What about Trump? That's the last chance for him to be a president. So he did a lot in campaign. He was really mad, you know, very much active. And the chaos that we can face just after elections, I mean, next days after elections, weeks maybe, will be crucial for American democracy. Yes, because everyone expects some violations. What type of violations? I mean, an attack on a hill? I don't know. But
the lawyers are preparing, I think, already
Well,
litigations in various swing states. So,
yeah.
You know, it's going to be a...
This will be also a big, if Kamala Harris wins, this will be a big exam of is she going to be a good president? Because we really don't know. We know that she has the right ideals, but she really did not prove herself anyhow. We really, the paradoxical thing is that we all know, we all say that Donald Trump is unpredictable, but we know him for so many years that we actually could predict probably much better than what Kamala Harris will do.
First of all,
because she really is a mystery.
We don't know exactly.
She's a dream. She's everyone's
She's
dream.
also a loose cannon. You never know what she's going to do. You know?
Agreed here for once, and it's a good thing. The conversation will be more interesting. I think we know what to expect from Kamala Harris administration. She is not a very strong leader. She doesn't have enough support inside Democratic Party. There are sections, there are groups in the Democratic Party that do not support her. She was chosen by the majority because of the situation with Biden and got the support because she was the only chance. She was vice president, she was already there. But she will have to adjust her policy towards the mainstream of the Democratic Party, and we know what a majority of Democratic Party wants and how it will proceed. So I don't think she will be unexpected leader drifting to us some new policies, some new agenda. But what I'm really afraid of, and I have to tell you, I'm watching the campaign and the news from United States with anxiety, with fear even, is that in case of second term of Donald Trump, him returning to the power and his allies, we really are at the crossroads in a global sense, not in America that is, you said about women voters, but really the electorate change. During the last 20 years, there is 50 million immigrant Americans, and mostly from the South, but also from Asia. So this is not America we used to remember, and the electorate is different. What is interesting for us probably is paradoxical that these new immigrants from Mexico, for example, they are supporting Trump. So the voters, the average voter in America is not like we used to think of him or her. It's somebody different. It's maybe a different mindset. So I think what we might face after the Donald Trump would be a president, will be a president, is a new world order, a new America that might not be the same country with the same values and the same system that was developed in the 18th century.
And just to round up our discussion, my last question will be, shall we be concerned about Poland, about the region? And we only have time for a short answer.
No. Every expert I was speaking with just before this election said that you are safe because, Biden-Kamala administration. But coming back to Kamala for a while, her presence in Biden administration was not very much spectacular. It was a second line in politics, So we really don't know how she will behave. Behave as a president. But coming back to Poland, Trump is transactional, as we told, and our spends for defense are higher than his expectations. So we will be the beloved pupil in his class, experts say, because our spends for is just coming to 5% of GDP. Yeah, so it's we are safe from the point of view of democratic administration. It will be continuation of Biden line, and it's still absolutely safe for Poland. Of course, there is a question of Ukraine.
The question of Ukraine, exactly.
Yeah,
I was
the
going to say.
question of Ukraine is open.
Yeah.
Open, of course, but NATO countries, especially Poland and Baltics, this is not my opinion. There's opinion coming from experts from DC.
What happens?
You can feel safe.
What happens if Trump pulls the plug on support for Ukraine? What happens? What happens then? It makes Polish.
Loses war.
Yeah, but
so what happens to Polish security if Poland is safe?
I think both candidates will run for ceasefire in Ukraine next year. Both. And Trump can stop support and weapons delivery, but Kamala is not able to pass on a hill another big support, billions of dollars. It's over. Never, no one more.
If I could just
that doesn't make Poland safer.
Summing
does
up,
it?
Poland is safe no matter who is in charge, Kamala Harris or Trump, because we had good relationship. Yep. PO had good relation with one, and however, the world will be much less safe with Donald Trump in charge. For this, I'm
Donald Trump is a very bad idea, a very bad sign for Poland and NATO and global stability and Europe stability, and without. U.S. in NATO or presence as we used
Trump
to have,
will never destroy NATO.
We are really in a bad place.
And on this note, we have to conclude. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. Much appreciated. And thank you for watching Press Corner. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.
Have a good day.